And the quotation is from Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Yes.
Who said, "Most of the shadows of this life are caused by our standing in our own sunshine."
And I will disclose to you that this particular quotation was taken from the Bathroom Mirror collection of quotations by fit athletic trainer Courtney West, who's going to be joining us in the third hour of the show this morning.
That's a good quote.
Is that the name of a book?
Which? The Bathroom Mirror collection?
Yeah.
No, Courtney, I was doing some research on her last night in preparation for the segment she's going to be on. She is a very motivational kind of person, and she will write on her bathroom mirror in dry erase marker a quote every day, and that's what greets her the next morning when she gets up. I think it's a wonderful idea for motivational kind of stuff, and so this is
how can that be much of a surprise when you're the one that wrote it?
It reinforces that whole thing. Now, if you wake up the next morning and it's been changed, there's your surprise.
There you go. You got gremlins now. Now you got a story.
Exactly. Jim Blake with the Quant Group at Wunderlich Securities is in the studio with us. The phone number here is 7139-650-650, and Jim does a weekly newsletter. It's called This Week Technically Speaking, comes out every Saturday morning. And I always ask you this, and you always tell me the same thing. I don't know. But what's it going to be about this weekend?
I don't know. Yeah, well, here's the reason that I usually say that, because most of this report is analyzing the markets at week's close. So the bulk of my report can't be determined until Friday afternoon.
Close the business tomorrow.
Every once in a while, and I've included a page it's irregular. It's on an as needed basis, and it's called Food for Thought. And I don't have a food for thought today.
Is this like Jack Hanley's Deep Thoughts?
No, I like to think it's more substantial than that.
Okay.
But, that in this Food for Thought, that's where I try to write about things that aren't well known now. These are little kernels of things that you can follow. I've talked about Japan. I've talked 3 times this year in that space. I have talked about our initial unemployment claims, which will be, it's probably been announced that, don't know what the numbers are, but, what a lot of people don't realize is that initial unemployment claims is a pretty good window into the economy, and the initial unemployment claims has been telling us for 4 or 5 months now that hiring's not improving. The economy's not improving, everybody says it is, but, it's kind of funny. You get a lot of guys on market television, on these analytical shows, that tell you that they think the economy's improving, but they do so pretty much sans any real statistical evidence to that effect.
Well, you made an analogy earlier in the show about these economists are like a good chef. A good chef will try, put something in and try and say,
meddling.
Wonder how that tastes like. And I actually disagree with that analogy. A good chef already knows what that ingredient's going to do when he adds it.
Oh, you think?
A bad chef wonders, with the exception of experimentation.
Let me refute that a little bit. Have you ever had a good chef come up to you and say, "Hey, I tried this in the kitchen, tasted it's awful"?
No.
I mean, they tell you their successes, so I have to think that they don't always know how something's going to taste when you put it together.
These economists are basically guessing.
Yes, they are absolutely guessing. I promise you that they are guessing.
And I don't know how good that we call them educated guesses. I don't know really how how educated their guesses really are.
To follow the metaphor, the proof is in the pudding. And let me ask you this question then, looking at it that way. Who's the Julia Child of Wall Street? Who's got the best cookbook, the best recipes?
Well, I would say Jim Blake. That's why we have him on this show.
But hey, listen, don't confuse me with an economist.
That's true.
My favorite saying about the economist is that if you took all the economists in the world and laid them end to end, they would not reach from here to a conclusion. And that is absolutely true. And look, you got to give them a little bit of a break. We're living in very nearly unprecedented times. The only thing that really does compare with what we are dealing with right now is the 30s. And for that reason, and that reason alone, we should be proceeding in a very cautious manner, but we're not. Most market participants and most economists are proceeding, standard operating procedure. They are assuming that everything's just normal as it can be. The problem that I have, and this gets back to the way that I've been recommending to my clients to invest their money more conservatively, is that, in my opinion, the upside of being right, of this being normal, and of everything turning out okay is still not as dramatic as the downside, as underestimating how bad this situation could be and what could happen on the downside. Now, understand that the average correction in the stock market associated with a recession is a drop of 32%. Okay, and that tells me that if there is another recession in our near future, we have a lot of downside risk in the stock market, probably more than most people think. And I have to imagine that our recent history is part of that problem. I think for the average investor, they're probably thinking to themselves, look, we just had a big drop a couple of years ago. There's no way we're going to have another one anytime soon.
Yeah.
And even if they're right, what was the time span between the 50% roughly drop that we saw in 2000 to 2002 and the 50% drop that we saw in 08. I mean, it was only 6 years. So, I'm just trying to get people to understand that we have an incredible number of headwinds right now. I mean, think about it. We've got 2 or 3 types of banking problems. We have government debt out the wazoo. We have consumers who are entrenching and trying to become savers. We have austerity in Europe, which is certainly going to slow economic growth there. And if they're slowing economic growth, that's another headwind for us, because if they're not buying our crap, what little crap we produce, we have a lot of headwinds, folks.
Jim, it's always a pleasure to have you in here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Check out Jim's newsletter at qgwsi.com, and you can catch him on the phone at 713-403-2117.